I think there is a huge faction, a huge swath of this country that says America deserves it because racism. America deserves it because white supremacy. America deserves it. Fuck them. And support them. Now and then you hear chatter about communism, and from my liberal days, I'm conditioned to go, oh, don't. But I have met communists. I know communists, literal communists. I didn't know any when I was a kid. I didn't know any when I was in my 20s, 30s. No. I know them now. Literal communists. And it's all fed by this racial oppression narrative. White supremacy, whiteness. America deserves to be torn down. That's the narrative. And replaced by something for the people. In the name of justice. I've said on this show lots of times. A bunch of times, justice doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. It's an idea. It's an abstract concept that does not exist anywhere outside of the fertile human imagination. It's not a real thing. You show me in nature, in the universe, anywhere else, in the entire known universe where justice exists, outside of the human fucking mind. If you want to protest, you want to hold on to that belief, you need to tell me where the justice is in an infant who was born 3 days ago dying in a house fire. Everything happens for a reason. Whack. No. Things happen. Not for a reason. Things happen. Justice is a human concoction. Both to make us feel good, make us believe that things are fair, but also to keep us in line, also to give us some structure socially. But that takes cooperation. That requires the majority, the vast majority, almost all of the country, to agree with the definition of justice. What is just? You start talking using the term justice and vengeance interchangeably. Retribution? That's not justice. Retribution is not justice. Justice and vengeance are not the same. You've got to be able to agree on what justice is, right? You with me? I got this little, I don't know what you call it, little story, I guess, from Walter Lippmann. I was digging through, I think it was Phantom Public a couple of years ago, and I absolutely loved this because I think it shows the example really well. What is justice? Justice is a matter of perspective sometimes. So when you have a country, you have a nation, a justice system, and your justice is your goal. As close to it as you can, you have to come from the perspective, an objective perspective of as being an American. Because once you start putting that in the hands of individuals, dependent upon their identity, they start taking it from an identity perspective, you go at each other's throats. Their idea of justice becomes oppression to somebody else. Sound familiar? Is turning the table justice, or is it vengeance? Or is it retribution? Those are not the same things. And once you get into this realm, once you start going at each other's throats, good luck. I guess I could go back to the agitation thing here, huh? I won't. Anyway, here's the story. And what he says is that Darwin's story of the cats and clover may be recommended to anyone who finds it difficult to free his mind of the assumption that his notions of good and bad are universal. The purple clover is cross-fertilized by the bumblebee, and therefore, the more bumblebees, the better next year's crop of clover. But the nest of bumblebees are rifled by field mice, which are fond of the white grubs. Therefore, the more field mice, the fewer bumblebees, and the poorer the crop. But in the neighborhood of villages, the cats hunt down the field mice. And so the more cats, the fewer mice. The more bumblebees, the better the crop. And the more kindly old ladies there are in the village, the more cats there will be. Or me and my wife. If you happen not to be a Hindu or a vegetarian and are a beef-eating Occidental, you will commend the old ladies who keep the cats, who hunt the mice, who destroy the bumblebees, who make the pasture of clover for the cattle. If you're a cat, you also will be in favor of the old ladies. But if you're a field mouse, how different the rights and wrongs of that section of the universe. The old ladies who keep the cats will seem about as kindly as witches with pet tigers, and the old lady peril will be debated hysterically by the Field Mouse Security League. For what could a patriotic mouse think of a world in which bumblebees did not exist for the sole purpose of producing white grubs for field mice. There would seem to be no law and order in such a world, and only a highly philosophical mouse would admit with Bergeron that, quote, the idea of disorder objectifies for the convenience of language the disappointment of a mind that finds before it an order different from what it wants. For the order which we recognize as good is an order suited to our needs, hopes, and habits. A narcissistic perspective, self-interest. If you start putting the definition of justice in the hands of identitarians, pretty soon, these different factions are going to be at each other's throats. Equality, not equity, not equal outcomes, but everybody should have the equal chance to succeed, pursue life, liberty, and happiness and all that. Equal opportunity. That's what we used to strive for. That's the country that when I was a kid, when I was a young adult, when I was over 30, that's what we were striving for. Equality. Equality and opportunity, not forced outcome. That's not justice. Because to force an outcome in favor of somebody else, you have to take it away from another person. That is not justice. That's what that whole story is about. You become the cat eating the field mouse. It's almost like lions and tigers. You've got a lion pissing and moaning, oppressing, or trying to take something from the tiger. The tiger's going to get pissed off. But one of those two animals, those two little beasts, they have to tear each other to shreds. One's going to live, one's going to die. The other's going to be injured. And if you have this fight going on in your house, if you have a lion and tiger fighting in your living room, the living room being the country, what happens to your fucking living room? I'm full of metaphors. Worthy and unworthy victims. Justice. We are in a messy place.